Hey good people, how you doing? Welcome to episode 49 of 254 Rugby. My name is Michael Kwambo and today we have got a packed show, covering the dramatic off-field shakeups in Kenya, history-making sevens in Uganda, and thrilling international rugby from the Women's Rugby World Cup and the Rugby Championship. First up, let's start with what's happening in Kenyan rugby and at Kenya Harlequin FC, the second oldest existing rugby club in Kenya. They are facing one of the most dramatic shakeups in recent history. You see, 38 players have been given the green light to leave the club. This comes after a period of unrest, boycotts, and financial disputes. So let's look at it in two ways. Let's start with the players' side. And from what we have before us, it's that the crisis began after the Embu Sevens, when players voiced frustrations over the club's payment structure. Training dried up, and by Kabeberi Sevens, management was scrambling to field a team. A senior player reached out to 254 Rugby, saying the message from management was direct: either accept the terms or walk away. And many of them felt they couldn't continue like that, and therefore they asked for their release letters. A poll put in the squad's WhatsApp group confirmed it. Over 30 players are ready to leave if the payment model didn't change. So, that is the players' side. Let's look at it from the management's position. Probably about a fortnight ago at the RFUA ground, the team's leadership stood firm. Players had to adhere to the existing payment plan or request their release letters. And again, in matters that were flowing last week, it was that the director of rugby at Kenya Harlequin had then gone ahead to invite players to collect their transfer forms. And names on the list obviously included a number of seasoned campaigners as well as rising stars. And that is where Quins find themselves in. So what is the bigger picture? Well, if you look at it from the players' side, it's a statement of frustration. From management's perspective, it's all about enforcing financial discipline. The reality, though, is without these 38 players, Quins' depth at this moment is in jeopardy. Can they field a competitive Kenya Cup side, or will this crisis redefine one of Kenya's most storied clubs? They like to say that the game will continue, that rugby will still be played, and it will be interesting to see how these matters at Kenya Harlequin unfold in the coming days and weeks. Now, from Kenya Harlequin, let's move to Uganda. We're just going across the border to Uganda, and this past weekend saw the conclusion of the Uganda Rugby Sevens Series, and history has been made this past weekend. A big shout out to Leo Lubambula. You see, Leo is the coach of the Walukuba Barbarians, and they claimed their first ever Uganda Rugby Sevens Series overall title, capping a seventh season that was defined by resilience, consistency, and ambition. What you may need to know about the Walukuba Barbarians is that the team is based in Jinja, and as mentioned earlier, they are coached by Leo Lubambula. And they turned from hopeful contenders into champions in 2025. Interestingly, their coronation came not from their own results at the final stop, the Buffalo Sevens, but from a twist of fate. You see, the hosts, Buffaloes, lost 14-10 to Cobs in the pool stages, mathematically handing Walukuba the series title even before the knockouts began. And just for the record, the Buffaloes were the Barbarians' closest contenders heading into the final round. It was a 7-point gap between the two sides. The Barbarians were on 116 points, while the Buffaloes were on 109 points, or was it 107? But I think it was it was a tight, it was a close race between the two sides. I'll not dwell too much on the margins because the title has already been decided. Now, we could just glaze through Walukuba's road to glory. You see, the season was built on consistent excellence. Back-to-back wins at the Kabaka and Chabizinga Sevens, which established them first as frontrunners. And then 3 straight runner-up finishes at the Gulu Sevens, Rujumba Sevens, and Kabale Sevens actually turned them into contenders. And you see, for the Walukuba Barbarians, even when they didn't reach the finals, they kept accumulating points. 15 at the Entebbe Sevens, 13 at the Buffalo Sevens. This was a demonstration of not only unwavering determination, but commitment and consistency. Some of the ingredients that you need in order to win championships. And in the end, for the Walukuba Barbarians, it wasn't a single moment of brilliance, but a campaign of steady accumulation, belief, and consistency that delivered the title. Walukuba Barbarians, 2025 Uganda Rugby Sevens Series champions. Congratulations to you and to Leo Lubambula. Big up, man. That is good. You've done well. And taking the celebrations as you prepare for the 15th season. And for all of us here at 254 Rugby, our hearty congratulations. Now, let's leave Africa and go overseas. First to the Women's Rugby World Cup. The final played at Twickenham this past weekend before a record crowd of 81,000. That is a record crowd for a women's international rugby match. And England's Red Roses produced a commanding display to defeat a very ambitious Canada, 33 points to 13, and claim their third Women's Rugby World Cup title, extending an unbeaten streak to 33 matches. Let's break down the match and how it turned out to be. You see, it was Canada who struck first through Asia Hogan Rochester, but England quickly responded. Ellie Kilderne's solo try setting the tone, while Emmy Cocaine and Alex Matthew added further scores. Sophie De Guide, the Women's Player of the Year for 2025, scored a penalty for Canada, keeping them within reach. But England's forwards at the end of the day dominated the collisions and maintained territorial control. In the second half, Abby Ward crossed for England's 4th try, while Hogan Rochester grabbed her 2nd for Canada. Matthews' 2nd try, as well as England's resolute defense, secured the victory for the Red Roses. Now, let's talk about Canada and their determination. They had an impressive tournament. Let's not take that away from them. This included a semi-final win over defending champions New Zealand, and they nearly hit their $1 million fundraising goal to compete with the top teams. They played attractive rugby, but at the end of the day, England's power, precision, and composure proved decisive on the big stage. For England, they are champions once again. Skill, strength, determination, and rewriting history at Twickenham. Now, guys, this past weekend also was the Rugby Championship, and 2 big matches, 2 big results. Much as the game between South Africa and Argentina was played after the New Zealand and who New Zealand playing? Australia. We'll start by looking at the game between the Springboks and Los Pumas. Well, let's just say the Springboks shone. And in 2 straight rugby championship matches, they have put in 100 points. You see, they started with that record 43-10 victory over New Zealand 2 weeks ago. Then they followed this up with a storming 67-30 victory over Argentina in Durban. And it was interesting because they turned a chaotic first half into a statement, and they were led by the 22-year-old phenomenon, Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu. Let's see how this game turned out. You see, there was a shaky start for the Springboks. Errors and poor discipline giving Argentina early chances. Santiago Chocobares scored from a miscued drop kick, and a penalty try followed a collapsed maul. I must say that for South Africa in this half, they had their seasoned veterans like Eben Etzebeth and Peter Steph Dutoit getting caught out time and again. Then there was the Sacha show. Feinberg-Mngomezulu took control, scoring 4 tries, including a hat-trick and notching a record-breaking 37 points, surpassing Percy Montgomery for most points by a Springbok in a test. And just for the record, Percy Montgomery scored 35 points for the South Africans in a Rugby World Cup match against Namibia in August 2007. South Africa won that game by 105 points to 13. Anyway, back to Mngomezulu, and away from the numbers, he also brought composure and direction to the Springboks. Rassie Erasmus got his forwards to be ruthless and to be authoritative. Dutoit carried the ball 18 times and scored twice. Marks dominated the breakdown. The set piece had some interesting statistics, including 5 stolen lineouts and scrum dominance. These were things that blunted Argentina's strengths. Kobus Reinach, Monye van der Berg, R.G. Snyman, and Quagga Smith contributed late to seal the win. I think in this game, South Africa, they were not flawless. They had their flaws. But once their power game kicked in and clicked, Argentina, they had no answer. Mngomezulu may have just changed the direction of this Springbok team, and I'm counting on them to run away with the Rugby Championship title in 2025. Now, the All Blacks, they needed to bounce back, and they had the perfect punching bag in Australia, for lack of a better word. You see, the previous weekend or the previous round of the Rugby Championship saw the All Blacks hammered by the Springboks 43-10, and obviously they were not going to take defeat against their bitter rivals Australia. Remember, these two teams were also competing for the Bledisloe Cup, and the result ended 33-24 to New Zealand at Eden Park, which we must admit is a fortress for the All Blacks. You see, in this game, Cam Roigard returned from injury. He scored 2 tries and he was brilliant at scrum half. Caleb Clark, what can we say about him? I think he was inspired by his dad, Eroni, singing the pre-match anthem. He opened the scoring while Leroy Carter also crossed over for the All Blacks. The New Zealand bench, we must give credit to them. They steadied New Zealand at a point where Australia threatened a comeback. Their tackle efficiency for the All Blacks collectively was 93%, and this played a big role in limiting Australia's attack. Areas to watch for New Zealand, well, I must say that breakdown discipline remains an issue. There are repeated penalties for sloppy clear-outs. For the Australians, well, they suffered injuries, including Tate McDermott, and there was James O'Connor's struggles at fly half. These were things that repeatedly handed the momentum back to New Zealand. At the end of the day, this was a classic test rugby. It was fast, it was physical, it was tense. Roigard, well, he lit up the crowd at Eden Park. The bench for New Zealand made the difference. And New Zealand, of course, retained the Bledisloe Cup. Australia fought hard, but couldn't overcome familiar flaws in discipline, defense, and direction. Well, good people, it has been nearly 16 minutes, and this is it for episode 49 of 254 Rugby. From the player unrest at Kenya Harlequin to history-making sevens and record-breaking performances on the world stage, rugby delivered drama, brilliance, and heart. Stay tuned. We will keep tracking these and more stories in the coming weeks. And before we sign off, just want to give a special mention to our sponsors, La Villa Fitness. You can check them out in Langata for all your fitness and conditioning needs. Until next time, catch you later. Peace.